live from the Harmon Solar Studios on 1580 The Fanatic. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event.
All right, Wednesday night, the main event here, 1580 The Fanatic, also 99.3 FM. Text line as always, guys, 888-368-1580, and ladies, of course. And I'm Steve McCollum. Thanks for coming in, listening today. After I stirred up a little bit there with the who's got more back hair thing. And, man, that text line, so I'm not going to read any of them because that's the blender deal. But, wow, you guys really lit that up. That was fantastic light up there on the text line for everybody.
Who would have guessed that would have been so controversial? Or such a lightning rod.
It's just a dig at Chief, right? And then it just turns into this whole, like...
You're the one who even started it. We never even said anything about it.
I
You're
know.
the one who came with the back comment.
That's my favorite part. If you notice, I, like, zoned out of that because I'm like, I'll let Jeffrey run with this. I don't need them bashing me. I don't wake up early enough to listen to that show, so don't be bashing me. But I did listen to Drew Pearson this morning. That was pretty interesting, so... Hey, Big George, good evening. He says, hey, Big Steve, tough game today for the Coyotes. I don't think a playoff team has ever lost by 6 goals in 2 straight games. Well, you're probably right. I'm not going to look that stat up because that's just depressing. So let's get into it here. My big question is on the Coyotes. It was a tough day. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I turned it off. And Notorious J.O.B. says the poll is up. So go to 1580 The Fanatic. At the 1580 The Fanatic on Twitter, and I think it's on Twitter, I'm assuming. Get on there and vote for the back hair question for the morning show, because, wow, this is what we do in the afternoon. We mess up the morning show on there. So the Coyotes, I turned it off in the second period today. It wasn't going anywhere, obviously. It was a mess. I'm just going to chalk it up to these last 2 games, no heart, I guess you could say. I didn't see any fight in this team. And to be honest with you guys, I don't know if I blame them. In this environment, being in a bubble, they've been in this bubble for a while. They were outmatched in this series. I had the Avalanche winning in 6 going into this series, and it was strictly because the Avalanche, if they're not the best team in the West, they are definitely number 2, and definitely not any worse than number 3. And it was just a bad matchup. It would have been the same way. And I said this going in also with the, the Golden Knights and the Chicago Blackhawks, for all my Blackhawk friends out there that were all hyped up for that series. I was like, this is just a bad matchup for you guys, and it's not going to go well for you. And I thought the Coyotes could win at least 2 in there. But here's the question, guys. Get on the text line, 888-368-1580. Hey, also, Kaylor, Golden Shoe wants to know where you're from in Iowa real quick.
Well, I'm from Gilbert, but I worked in a small town called Mount Pleasant, about 45 miles south of Iowa City.
I have a feeling Golden Shoe is from Iowa, so he's going to come back with, I'm on the left cornfield on the right.
Everyone, like, when I go golfing, I wear an Iowa Hawkeye hat. Mm-hmm. Every single time, somebody always comes up like, oh, what part of Iowa are you from? I'm like, I tell them, like, oh, I'm from this town, like, always nearby. It's always
when I worked in the corporate world, I had a coworker that always wore a Iowa Hawkeye shirt.
Yeah.
And no matter where you went, somebody would be like, oh, I live on such and such street. He'd be like, oh, yeah, I know where that's at. And you're like, what? It's a huge state, man.
My dad loves cruises, and every time he goes, he wears, like, the colleges of, like, me and my siblings. And he goes, the one that always gets the most strangers' attention is the Iowa one.
Yeah, I totally believe that, right?
It's crazy.
That in Nebraska, I have a feeling, would just be huge wherever you go. So there you go, Golden Shoe on there. And then Big George says, I agree, Big Steve. I think the Coyotes gave up after they went down big in the last game. They just didn't have the same intensity as the Avalanche. Shows me the Coyotes have a long ways to go to be best in the West. And that's kind of what I'm talking about is, let's get on the text line. Tell me, guys, was the Coyotes season a success? I'll go ahead and ruin my thoughts on this, kind of wait for you guys to text in if you guys want on that. I want to know if it's a success in your eyes, and here's my thing on it. It was a success. It was disappointing how they went out. Even though I thought they'd lose this, I wanted to see more fight, right? I wanted to see them in the games a little bit more. I wanted to see them hitting till the end. In a 7-1 game, you're not going to be hitting at the end, especially in an elimination game. But even last game, they got a little chippy at the end there, and I think that just fired up the Avalanche a little bit more. But I don't think this season was not a success, and the reason why is they went farther than they were supposed to go. Even with Taylor Hall, even with Kessel coming over, people weren't expecting them, especially after the pause. People were not expecting them to beat the Predators. Most national pundits thought they would lose to the Predators going into that series, and the reason why I thought they would win that series was just the defense, because they're a defensive team. Now, moving forward on the Coyotes, obviously you have huge free agent coming up, right? Are they going to I call this a turbulent offseason for the Coyotes moving forward. Is if you lose Hall because you don't want to pay him what other teams are going to pay him, that's going to be a huge deal. You missed that thing. You have Kessel on there, right? That's I believe he comes back next year, but he's in there, and you got that veteran presence. But what you need is, here's the question I got, and I have a feeling I know the answer, but I keep in my mind, I keep thinking I hope that's not the case. But Takis just a defensive coach, and to win in the West with the Knights and the Avalanches, you guys just saw with the Avalanches, you got to have offense. You got to be fast. You got to have good puck handlers. You can't sit back on your heels and just play defense like the old New Jersey Devils used to do back in the 90s when they were winning, where they would just sit in their blue zone and play defense the whole game, and then one pass, and then they would score, and they'd win the game, 1-0 or 2-1, something like that. Those days are over. You need stick handlers. You need speed, which the Coyotes have, actually, which they showed in Game 2 that they lost and then Game 3 that they won. They showed their speed in going from the defensive end to the offensive end. But I don't know if this team can turn with their coaching staff. And it's not a knock on Tocchet. It's not a knock on that or anything. But can they improve? If they lose Taylor Hall, are they going to improve? And that's a big question mark right now with all the GM stuff going on. They supposedly lowballed, and we've talked at length at that here. And I talked about it a couple of times filling in on the blender when all that was going on. You have a total GM upheaval. You have issues in the, executive office with the vice president kind of running negotiations. We got to see how that shakes out. So it's a turbulent offseason, kind of a question mark offseason, which 3-4 months ago, we thought this was a team on the rise, and there was nothing going to happen. Even if, however, this season ended, they're going to be up next year. And I think there's a little bit of a question mark on that. And I hate being that negative on it. I prefer to be more positive on it. And they're going to be a good team next year. Even if they lose some of these key free agents, they're still going to be a good team because they do play the defense. And they play the defense pretty well. But as we all just saw, when you're playing a really, really good team that's going to challenge for the Stanley Cup this year, you cannot play defense like that and only have 12 shots on goal. You're going to get beat every time, which is, like I said, why I thought the Avalanche would beat the Coyotes in 6. Ironically enough, since the blender was just talking about sports movies, A League of Their Own's on Fox Sports 1 right now, so just turned on my television. Hey, ironic. It's almost like they planned that. Jeffrey's at home doing magic things with the television. So Big George says, yes, he thinks the Coyotes season is a success because they made the playoffs for the first time in 8 years. Winning that series against the Predators was huge. Next season, he would expect more. And I agree. That's your initial reaction. You still expect to see more after seeing them go up against what is in standings is the second best NHL team in the West. Because I guarantee if they played the Knights, they actually would be in the same type of situation there. And otherwise, you go on that. So I'm kind of torn going into next year. I am a positive attitude on it. I expect them to make the playoffs next year again. Absolutely. Even if it's a 7 or 8 seed. And we'll see what happens in the offseason there. Papa Mike says, excuse me, here's a cough. Anytime you make the playoffs after not making it for many years is a success. That's exactly right, Papa Mike. On there. It's just anybody that's saying, because I have seen a few people that have said the season was a disappointment with the way it ended, and you can't see old argument, right, with the Suns on my Saturday show with Adam Michaels that we do on Facebook Live and Twitter Live, and you can find that all at gestaltproduction.com and Google Play and all of that stuff. Just search for the main event and look for our logo. The argument I had on the Suns was, is it better to go 8-0 for the Suns than to go 8-0 and then lose to Portland in the first game and be out? Because then you're going to have that negative taste of a loss there. Or even if you made the playoffs and you got the 8 seed and you got blew out by the Lakers and lost, in a sweep, is it better to go 8-0 to have that momentum going on? It's the same thing with the Coyotes here. Yes, it's very successful that they made the playoffs. They beat the Nashville Predators, and they made it too, and they play there. But you saw the disparity in talent on these two teams going into this, and you see the big gap they have to make up coming forward there. And then you got, of course, they're moving to the Central Division, so they get out of, so they won't be facing the LA, the Ducks, the Seattle team that you're assuming is going to be good with the way the NHL does their expansion drafts. You're expecting Seattle to be competitive. Doesn't mean they're going to be like the Vegas was when they came into the league 2 years ago and they just put it on fire and made the finals, or the final hockey at single on there. But you expect them for Seattle to be good out in the Pacific there, just for that. And then of course you're going to have to deal with Dallas, who that Dallas-Calgary series is probably the best series going on right now in the first round of the playoffs. So definitely keep your thoughts on the Coyotes coming in. Guys, tonight, Wednesday night, it's 6:12-ish or so. We're here for like another 45 minutes. Guys, let's throw the topic out on the text line. I got a ton of stuff to talk about. Let's do a whatever, what do they call that? The whatever you want to talk about Wednesday night. That's not very catchy. Open lines Wednesday night here at the main event. If I steal one from, I think Rush Limbaugh does that. So Golden Shoe comes in and says, I want to talk about this, and I've been following this story like you would not believe. I've been reading every media person on both sides of it. I've been delving deep into this subject here, and I'm fascinated by it because I think the Big Ten and the Pac-12 pulled the trigger way too early on this. They made a lot of mistakes, and it's coming out now, which I had a feeling it was going to come out, that they did not handle it right. Somebody has messed this up beyond belief, and now they're trying to cover their tracks, because the one simple thing to do on the Big Ten deal is when you come out and you cancel this season, you come out with what happened, the reason why the medical is saying don't play. You come out with that information. You know what you don't do? You don't say we're canceling the season because of medical. We're worried about the safety of the players, and then you shut up and don't give your evidence, and then you let the students come on campus. And then you have the teams come out and the players come out and the parents come out and ask, well, what's the reason you canceled it for? Why are we canceling it? Just give us the information. And they're like, nope, not doing it. And then the Big Ten commissioner comes out today and says, look, we're not reviewing this. It was our decision. We don't care what you guys think. We're done with it. And then you have Ohio State, I think it was yesterday or was it this morning, came out and said they're looking at putting together a 6-game home-and-home game against 6 other Big Ten opponents. So Big Ten teams are talking about going it. And Golden Shoe, you're absolutely right on the text line, 888-368-1580. The Big Ten commission is having serious credibility problems. He's got to go at this point. Whether they play or they don't, this guy looks like the biggest horse's butt ever on the planet out there right now. And he's having the football teams turn on him. The Minnesota's president came out and was like, we didn't vote on it. We have no idea where these votes came from and where he's saying it was 12-2 or whatever the number he had was. And it is not good. And at this point, it's just, I don't even know what's worse with reading into this and everything is hopefully we get a little bit more things here for, like I said, the Saturday show that I do with Adam Michaels. But I'm a firm believer of the Big Ten is going to be forced. If the parents and the players and these teams, forget about the presidents, if the ADs, even Gene Smith, the AD at Ohio State, at the beginning, he was lockstep with the conference on why they need to cancel it. And then now he's like, hey, I'm behind the team. I'm behind Justin Fields and all that good stuff. One thing I do got to say on this is with Ohio State coming out, I know Ohio State's a very good team. I know Ohio State's obviously going to push for the playoffs. How does going to January now the new plan is they want to play in January in domes for the Big Ten and have their season starting in January. How is it safer? And I just want to hear this from the Big Ten. I want them to come out and tell us. I don't, no offense to everybody on Twitter, but I don't, you aren't in the talks. So I don't, if you're not in the talks or have sources in there, I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to kind of talk with you on it. But I want to hear from somebody in the know in the Big Ten, whether it be a reporter with sources, somebody in the Big Ten to come out and tell me How is it safe to play indoor in the middle of cold flu COVID season in the middle of January in the Big Ten, but it's not safe to play outdoors in September here coming up? Whatever the answer is, just tell me. Tell us. I don't care what the answer is, but I want it to be truthful, and I want it to be what it is. That's all I'm looking for from the Big Ten. And I said early on that the leadership of the Big Ten is a failure. The presidents are a failure. The commissioners are a failure. And it sounds to me right now, it's looking like, when Golden Shoe kind of hinted on it here with his credibility issues, it sounds like these presidents are ready to just put this new guy that just got this job, last year, and they're willing to throw him under the bus for whatever happens here, and then they're going to go off and do their own thing. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here. Big George, I knew you were going to come on this. He says, Steve, you are so off base on this topic. You cannot fault the Big Ten and Pac-12 for postponing their seasons due to COVID-19. There is no vaccine. There is no appropriate treatment. If a player catches this while playing and ends up dying, the liability would be huge. But then, George, how can you go on and say you cannot let the inmates run the asylum? So, again, George, here's my question. I'm fine with them canceling the season if they feel it's unsafe and they don't want to do it. Fine, cancel it. But what you can't do is ASU can't move 13,000 students into their dorm rooms last weekend and then say it's safe for 13,000 kids to move into dorm rooms. I have friends that have kids that are going to these dorms. You can't let them go into these petri dishes of dorm rooms and say that's okay when they're not being tested every day like the football team will. My problem with this isn't that they canceled the season. Fine, cancel it if you don't feel it's safe. I'm on board with you on that. But what isn't cool is the BS that you're coming out with for the reasons why. They blamed a heart condition, Big George. Don't forget that. They came out and said whatever that heart condition name is. I can't even say it. It's so long. It's a medical term. They blamed that. And, okay, blame that. Where's the proof that is such a bad disease and bad issue that we have to cancel the whole season for everybody? That's what I want them to do. I don't care that you cancel the season. I don't care that you blame COVID-19. Where's the proof behind it? You don't get the luxury in today's day and age to say, we're the adults, you listen to us. You do what we say. I understand why the players are fighting back. I completely do. If I was a player, I'd be fighting back because there's no reasonable expectation. Because, guys, we all know this, right? You have the medical people. They say, Pac-12 and Big Ten say, well, medical says you can't do it. Okay. So why is the ACC, SEC? You can cherry-pick your doctors. Whether the ACC, SEC is cherry-picking their doctors for the positive, that could be bad too. But you can't do that on the other side, on there. And Big George says, no, I agree. ASU should not be allowing in-person learning. It should be fully remote. And this is all I'm talking about. I know it gets mixed up with everything, and everybody thinks that I want these kids out there being unsafe and all that. That's not what I'm saying here, guys. I'm saying the hypocrisy of it is driving everybody nuts. And the Pac-12 presidents, the Pac-12, the Big Ten especially, do not look smart in putting themselves in this situation. And that's where it's frustrating, is what I'm trying to say on that. So, and then as I go to break here, Papa Mike, I'll touch on this on the backside. Have you heard about Notre Dame and all their new COVID cases? Well, of course I have. Everybody hears about it and all that. And then Appalachian State I saw a report yesterday saying that Appalachian State had a cluster of 11 cases in their sports program yesterday. A cluster is not 11 cases. So anyway, we'll talk a little bit more about this on the other side, guys, and whatever else you guys want to talk about here when we come back on the main event, 1580 The Fanatic.
No one covers sports like the main event.
All right, we're back here, second segment, the main event here, Wednesday nights, 1580 The Fanatic. Text line 888-368-1580. Of course, I'm Steven McCollum. And Big George texts in and says he wants to talk about the statistical oddities here with Major League Baseball, basically on how they try to shorten the game with all these rule changes and everything, and the article that he sent, I saw another one on this. I actually talked about this. It was either last Saturday or the Saturday before on these rule changes and if you liked them or not, and kind of went on this deal. So it's good to see these guys doing it because Big George says despite their best efforts at tinkering with his beloved sport of baseball, games are longer this season on record. This is even with all their new BS rules of having 3 batter minimums, 7-inning doubleheaders, limit on mound visits, universal DH, putting a runner on second to start extra innings. Big George says, end this awful experiment and go back to the old rules. Well, they are going to go back to the old schools next year until they get to the CBA on there. But, yeah, I mean, according to this, I mean, the weird thing about this is at the beginning, the man starting on second in the last inning actually sped up the games. It did. But what we've seen in the last few weeks is that it actually has gone longer. We've seen more games go into the 11th, 12th inning and not end in that 10th inning like they're designed to do with that rule. And it's pretty spectacular. But, I mean, it makes sense. And obviously, Big George, I don't have time to read this while I'm on the air and talking. But I'm going to guess here, and I could be completely off base, but I'm going to guess on something. So tell me if I'm right or wrong on this. Is it longer because we're seeing more runs being scored, and then therefore more guys are on base more often, and that's pushing the time up? That's what I would think it'd be, because it seems like every game I watch, it's bases are loaded, in the first inning, the third inning. We talked last night about the Padres hitting a grand slam in the 8th inning of that game. 3 guys on base and a guy up, Tatis Jr. up. Then they opened the game yesterday with 3 guys on, grand slam to begin that game. So that's what I'm just guessing with here. But according to this, it says, the longest average time for a 9-inning game, which was set at 3 hours and 5 minutes in both 2017 and 2019. And about a month into the new season, it looks like that mark could soon be overtaken as games are taking 3 hours and 7 minutes on average. So 2 minutes longer, guys. 2 minutes longer. It's funny. I laugh because it's funny when you break down times like this on games that 2 minutes is the average. So you're like, it's not that much more. But when you think about it in terms of the games and the season, it actually is a longer time. But it's funny when it comes down to that. So, yeah, right here, this is what they say. It's been lost to continued explosion in the offense across the league. An average of 9.43 runs are being scored per game this year, the second highest total in the past decade. The batters are being more selective as ever, seeing an average of 3.95 pitches per plate appearance. Say that 10 times fast. Per plate appearance. The average rate on record, or the highest rate on record. So all the extra runs with the DH going away, all the extra base runners, the players sitting on pitches longer, going deeper into the count, is causing these times to explode for these baseball guys, baseball games. And I haven't watched one of these 7-inning doubleheaders yet. I know there's been a few already. I just haven't gotten around to watching them with hockey on and even then NBA on. I've kind of put that aside. I'm so against the 7-inning rule. It's not even funny. It's something where I don't even want to entertain. I'm like so against it. I did read a few media guys that I follow and that I've talked to in the past and for like Minnesota and things like that, where they said they like the 7-inning games, because there's 2 on top of each other. They wouldn't like it if it was just one game, 7 innings, but because there's 2 in a row, they actually kind of enjoyed it. It was a Twins beat writer and everything that was telling me all that. So it's pretty funny how that goes. Big George says he thinks the point of that is that the season is so messed up with the shortened season, new rules, etc. This season is going to have to be a wash. Yeah, I mean, when the season started, I was willing to entertain no asterisk at the end. We have all had that discussion, if you remember that, from before all these sports started going up. But once you start going to 7-inning games on baseball, I was willing to forgive the man on second this season, but you can't do it anymore. I'm even willing to overlook the universal DH. And I'll be honest with you guys, I haven't missed the pitcher hitting. I don't even think about it. When I'm watching a game, no matter what game it is, whether it's American League or National League, but especially Diamondbacks, I've never once said, man, when's the pitcher coming up? Never once have I been like, have I missed it? And that actually is a surprising thing for me because I was 1,000% against universal DH. I still am, by the way, because it takes strategy out. We've had this discussion on Twitter a lot. Of course, you can follow me at SMAC500 for those of you that don't always do it. We've had this discussion a lot, especially recently. Big George and I had a big one the other night on how bunting has gone out of the game, and it's going to get even worse with the universal DH coming in, base stealing, and all that good stuff. And one thing I wanted to say, since it's on my mind right now, Tatis Jr. stealing third last night wasn't just fantastic because he stole it against the guy that he hit the grand slam off of, and then he threw it Machado. It was so great because not only did he break a quote-unquote unwritten rule on a 6-0 ball game or whatever it was, or in the 6th inning, it was a blowout, but not only that, but he slides out of the base path to avoid the tag to make sure he gets there. It doesn't get more aggressive than that. And he did everything but stand up at third base and put his middle finger up toward the Texas Rangers bullpen. And the one thing you did not see, which I did like about that, was you did not see the Padres head manager go to the media and complain about it afterwards. So does that mean that somebody got to him and said, shut up, quit talking like this about our favorite star player that's going to be a stud someday, even more so than Machado is out there? And so it's just little things like that in the world of baseball. I know it's a hot topic and everybody respect the game and, pitchers need to respect the game. If you're going to say batters need to respect the game and not show up to pitchers need to not show up. When Roger Clemens is out there, staring down pitchers, when Andy Pettit's staring down pitchers, when Roger Clemens is throwing bats at Mike Piazza, come on, guys. Everybody does it on both sides, and it just happens. And if you're, and my opinion on that is if I was a player, and even today, and not that I get shown up a lot these days, I mean, I was being mocked, guys. Listen to this. Gather around here. Listen to this. Kayla's going to like this story. So I was being mocked for a week, about how fat I am, how slow I am, how nobody's going to be able to beat me. And I was being shown up, right? The whole week. Friday came. You guys saw the 3-second video. Who won? That's right, baby. That is right.
You cheated.
That is right. I was mocked. I could have taken my ball and gone home. I could have hit Kaler and been like, you're showing me up, and hit him. I could have thrown a bat at him. Did I do any of that? Did I charge the mound? Did I charge the dugout, Kaler?
No, we were fair sports. Even after the video, we both looked, and the video didn't have the beginning or the end, and we both said, you know what? It doesn't show who wins or loses. Post it. It was such a perfect video.
I got so much kick out. I was laughing the whole drive home. It was so funny.
Well, it was funny. I thought it was funny, all the memes and stuff people were sending us. The sloth one really hurt.
that one stabbed me a little bit in the heart, like, oh, my gosh, right? What we should have done was slow that video down, though, even more, gone to slow-mo on that. I could do some serious doctoring with that one there. But yeah, so, I mean, there's points in your life, especially in sports, where as a pitcher, you throw a bad pitch. As a hitter, Hefty Lefty says, it was a great 15-yard sprint. Well, you're using the word sprint loosely there. Man, I was telling Kaler yesterday, I was bragging a little bit. I for those of you that haven't been around, I had, I was in a boot for a while, then I was in a cast, with an ankle, Achilles, plantar fasciitis issue on my foot. Then I had the hernia surgery a couple months ago, so I've done nothing. And I went to the stretching place, and, oh, man, it's doing phenomenal wonders. Because what I learned in that run was my legs do not want to work at all. So I've been going to the stretching place now and to get all stretched out. So I'm getting ready. Basically what I'm saying is I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready for a repeat when the weather's not as hot. So maybe that'll be our next remote, Kaler, is we'll do the main event remote somewhere, and we'll
track and field events.
Yes. We'll have shot put there. Maybe what's the one with the big spear and you throw it and you try to hit people with it? Javelin, yes. No Olympics this year, so I'm off on what Olympic events there are in track and field since the Olympics were canceled this year. So on there. So text into the text line, 888-368-1580. Anything you guys have on your mind, anything you guys want to get out there that that is on your mind, you have your opinions about, man. Let's hear them. Let's discuss them tonight. Because here's the thing with the NHL hockey, right? Coyotes, of course, get eliminated today. Last night, the Knights closed out the Blackhawks. Tampa Bay closed out Columbus Blue Jackets. Boston closed out Carolina, I believe, today. Obviously, Colorado closed out Arizona. Tonight, right now, Philly is playing playing Montreal. Montreal just took the lead. I believe it's 3-2. Montreal's fighting to stay alive in this series. Yesterday, the Capitals won to keep that series alive against the Islanders, but it's 3-1. The Islanders are winning that series. Capitals are just outmatched in that series by far on there. And then, so they play tomorrow for 3-1, so that'd be game 6 tomorrow. 3, 4. That'd be game 5 tomorrow. Wow. we all know how math is a struggle on the main event. We've gone on this 1,000 times on there. Tomorrow you have, like I said, this is the best series. So if you have time tomorrow to watch Dallas-Calgary series, Dallas does leave that series 3-2 after they won yesterday. I believe in overtime was the game they won yesterday. 3-2 yesterday. This is the series that you guys want to tune into in this first round. It is phenomenal. So if Calgary can win this one, obviously it'll go to a game 7 coming up. On that. So the first round of the NHL playoffs are coming up. We've seen a lot of overtime. We've seen a lot of scoring, a lot more scoring than you think you'd see. And I'm not just talking about the Coyotes. We saw, Montreal beat Philadelphia 5-0 the other night and a bunch of large scores like that. A lot of overtime games, a lot of multiple overtime games. So what was your favorite thing here in this first round of hockey as it closes out? It's going to close out this weekend. Round 2 will start next week. Of course, I'll have all my picks out for the next series as well on at the Main Event Pod when all the matchups get set up. And, looking forward to round 2 because now it just gets even better as the season goes on. Round 1 was exciting enough. Now we got round 2 coming up here. It's going to be pretty great. Is anybody concerned about DeAndre Hopkins not practicing? I know he came out on Instagram or Insta or whatever he came out on social media and said he is not holding out. And when the Cardinals traded for him, one reason that he was traded was he doesn't have any guaranteed money left. So all of his contract is based off of performance and all that. And he wants more guaranteed money. So he wants to renegotiate his deal. I remember the Cardinals not guaranteeing you that they'd redo it, that they talk to him and try to get it done. Obviously, they need to get it done for trading for him. But anybody concerned about that at all with him on the sideline, quote unquote, nursing his hammy or whatever they're saying there? I'm okay with him sitting out, to be honest with you, except for the fact that I don't know how much he's worked out with. Now I'm going to screw up these names with the quarterback.
Kyler Murray?
That's why I'm laughing, because I almost said Kaler like 3 times.
No, Kyler.
I know. I've been see, this is why I'm going to get messed up here. So, but how much work has he gotten in with him in the offseason? There's timing routes there. At the same time, you just throw it up and let him go get it. Chief Scholes says on the text line, 888-368-1580, why be concerned about Hopkins? This is what he did in Houston as long as he's lights out during the season. And I agree with you, Chief Skull. I'm on that side of it. Like, that's fine. Let's keep him fresh for the season. But as I said, how much of this timing routes, how much of that stuff has he gotten? Now, there's no preseason games. So, when does he come in and play? Is it week 2? Is it week 3? In this preseason, I call it 2 and 3, but, 2 weeks before the season he gets out there. Obviously, he's in shape. Obviously, he's going to be ready to go. Just more thinking about the timing side. He's going to know the playbook. He's a professional. He goes out there. In Houston, he knew the playbook when he went in there. He worked, obviously, with Watson during the seasons that passed, so he went out there. Just a couple things that I just kind of question a little bit. I'm on the side of I'm not worried about it. I think everything's going to be fine. But I'm also, the eternal optimist, I guess, when it comes to sports teams out there. And the nice thing about Cardinals camp is, and like I said, you almost have to search for stories on it this year, which is completely weird. The nice thing about it, other than Robert Alfred, by the way, Steve Alfred, that I said yesterday, I realized driving home last night That's the college basketball coach that
Yeah.
went to the Bulls or whatever.
Yep,
right?
he played at University of Iowa.
Yeah.
No,
He's
he
from-
played at UCLA. He's from Iowa, though.
Yeah, he's from Iowa, because that's why he went from Iowa to UCLA, and then
Yes.
yeah. That's where I got, because I was like, why did I make up Steve Alford for? So but I mean, that's really the only injury we've had of the Cardinals in preseason camp. When you're seeing big names go out in other teams, I think that's great news for the Cardinals out there. And, of course, I'm seeing the snippets that the Arizona Cardinals put out on the social medias. The great reporters like Mike Jurecki, and those guys there, put out some great stuff on training camp. It's just a weird situation we're in. And I just don't know how much we need to be paying attention to professional football right now with no preseason games coming up. And we're still, 3 weeks away from the first games. So, it's just good to see the Cardinals being healthy so far. So when we come back, we'll get the third segment here, the main event here on 1580 The Fanatic.
Call your sons, call your daughters, call your friends, call your neighbors.
Old school exclusive.
The main event.
All right, we're back for the third segment, the main event. Nice news is the Diamondbacks are playing tonight. I had actually, I saw earlier, obviously, the reports of the fire up there, possibly air quality hurting the game to getting it started, and they are started. Leadoff hit here for the D-backs to start the game with a Gorilla Glue sign behind them. That's ridiculous sign. Big George says, Big Steve, can we get a Big Steve weather report? Will we have some monsoon storms tonight? It got up to 115 again today for the third straight day. And before we get into NBA here, let's have a talk. Let's have a real talk here. How tired are you guys of this heat? You get tired of the heat when you live in Arizona long enough. You get tired of the heat, right around August, September, and then August, you're like, can we cool down? But this has been ridiculous this year. And, I've been outside less this year because of COVID and quarantining and curfews and all of that. And I'm still tired of it. And I keep my house pretty cold. But yeah, Big George, I'll do my best impression here. So, we need to have a sponsor. We'll have this sponsored by Big George here. So we got the Big Steve weather reports brought to you by Big George. Currently 109 degrees in Northtown Scottsdale. Feels like 108. This afternoon it hit 113 here in Scottsdale. Tonight we'll get down to 89 degrees. No storms in the forecast according to my weather app on my phone. However, I will say when I left my house to drive up here, and a lot of you know I live out in the Far East Valley, and it was looking pretty dark again over those superstitions like it did. What night was that when that storm rolled through? And I was putting it all over Twitter, Monday or Tuesday. It just came out of nowhere. It rolled over, and normally it's been breaking up lately, and now it goes. So on there. But the bad news is, guys, is that we have no break in this heat coming up. According to, tomorrow's supposed to be 110. So does that mean we stop breaking records? But at this point, what's the difference between 110 and 115? And the first person that texts in and says 5 degrees, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to scream. So, yeah, Big George says, I see that too, Big George. That's what I was saying. It looks like no rain whatsoever. As I said, when I was driving in, I could kind of see dark clouds. But Big George says it also. Storms on the Doppler radar are starting to die down. So I think it's just a threat tonight. But, tomorrow, 110, Friday, 107, Saturday, 105. Man, we're going to have regular cold jacket day on Saturday. Sunday being 107. Then we're back up to 113 on Monday and 112 on Tuesday. And back up to the 100 and whatevers again. So, whatever on there. Well, they're still out. Your shows that they're still out over the superstitions there. Big George, your map, mine didn't show that, so you have super better radar than I do. Beer Bob just wants to hear me scream because he texts in and says the difference is 5 degrees. Thank you. Thank you very much. As like I knew that was coming right off the bat. Let's get in the NBA talk while the Diamondbacks, nothing happened in that half inning for the Diamondbacks. Oakland is now up to bat with their players here. I don't know any of the A's player. Matt Chapman, of course, I do know, actually. Not a team that's on the top. I don't think of anybody's register. So let's see. I mean, Diamondbacks took the first 2 in this series. Let's see if they can finish it out. But here's my question on the NBA. Guys, text in whatever you like. Like I said, we got about 15 minutes here left on this Wednesday. So anything you guys want to talk about, throw it up there. But on the NBA, right, so, some controversy with Porzingis getting thrown out. Now there's a chance he's not going to play in the next game because his knee is all inflamed. Not the one he had surgically repaired, but his other one is now inflamed. So we don't know if he's going to keep playing. So there's referee controversy. But the big news, as I talked about yesterday, was obviously Milwaukee lost to Orlando earlier in the day. We talked about that a little bit yesterday as a shocker. And then as I was leaving last night, the Lakers were playing poor, but they came back there toward the end of the first period when I left the station here. And I drove home, and I didn't turn it on because I just assumed the Lakers were going to, end up, blowing them out or having a game. I wake up today and see Portland won. Which team, and I'm not saying either team's in trouble necessarily, but after those 2 games with the number 1 seeds both losing with who they're matching up against, which one are you more worried about going there? Kaylor, which one are you more worried about?
That's a tough one. Who are you more worried about?
That's the worst. That's the.
I don't know.
Did I bother you in there? Did I interrupt you in there?
I'm not really worried about either of them, though.
Okay, so here's why I'm worried about the Bucks. I'm gonna give you why I'm worried about both of them, guys. Here's why I'm worried about the Bucks. Is they played good all season long. They have the best record in the NBA, and they have sucked since they've come back. I don't think
the Bucks have any proven players. The Lakers have proven guys.
But that's the point, right? They played so well, and then now when they need to play well the most, they haven't. This is why they're playing Orlando in the middle of the day where nobody watched it, because nobody wants to watch the Bucks. Because like you've said it, nobody's afraid of them, right?
Oh, no one's afraid of Giannis right now.
Yeah, so
they're going at him.
So I mean, basically, the rivals in the Eastern Conference aren't worried about him. They're not worried about playing him in the Eastern Conference semis or the finals. They're not worried about going against him. They're confident when they play against them, and that's why I'm more worried about. That's why I'm worried about the Bucks. Not more worried, but that's why I'm worried about the Bucks. Is they have a lot of inexperience, and they played so well until the break, and they've just come out looking like they've never played basketball before. I think they're 3-6 to come back since they came back from the bubble now. And so they haven't played well at all. They're struggling to find their mark. And now, being that they lost, they're now faced the task of winning 4 out of the next 6, which, by the way, is something they haven't done since early March. It's a long time. So I'm not saying the Bucks are not going to lose this series against Orlando. I'm just saying, for those of you that are picking the Bucks to go far into these playoffs, it might be something to reconsider a little bit if you're going that route. So.
And it doesn't help if you look at the Celtics, who just destroyed the 76ers today.
Even if you look at Miami, who wasn't expected to do much, and they are looking really, really good.
They're a well-coached team, and they have a group of guys who play tough, gritty basketball. It's a gritty basketball team.
Yeah, and that's why you look at it, and that's why you worry about the Bucks. Not necessarily in this series per se, but as they move forward on there. Yeah, the Bucks are 3-5 in the bubble seeding games, and of course they lost. It's not that they lost; it's that they lost so badly. So that's the issue I have. So that's why I'm worried about the Bucks, right? But to answer your question, Kaylor, I am more worried about the Lakers, and I know you're not.
What?
I know you're not. So why are you not worried about the Lakers?
Throughout LeBron's entire career, every time he's in the playoffs.
That's not true.
Almost, yes, it is. Every time
he got swept by the Spurs.
Okay, excuse me. Ever since he went to the Heat.
Miami lost a few playoff series there.
Can you name one good player on that team he took against the Spurs when he was, 20-something? He had Zydrunas Ilgauskas, Mo Williams. He had Boobie Gibson. That was not a good team.
No, because I'm an old guy, man. I was young back then, man.
That was a terrible team.
I was in Cleveland, Ohio, watching them close out that get swept in that series. I was in Cleveland when that went on, and for a work thing. And I was in a bowling alley the night they lost, and you could just see all the workers they had so much high hopes for it.
But if you look at LeBron's playoff career as a whole, especially more recently, anytime he has a bad game or his team loses in a bad fashion, historically, he comes back the next game with a vengeance, and he plays very, very well.
But they also don't win as much when he has to do that. He wins more when he gets his teammates involved.
Again, I don't think that game was really on him. He had a triple-double.
I'm not saying it is.
I'm saying it was everyone besides him and Davis, even though they both took a lot of bad shots.
Okay, let me give you some stuff here then, and then we'll get to the text line. The Lakers, prior to the season hiatus in March, the Lakers scored fewer than 93 points in 100 possessions. Just once. A 108-91 loss to Philadelphia. In their 9 games since the restart, the Lakers have scored fewer than 93 points per 100 possessions 4 times. They aren't scoring. They aren't scoring in the prevalence they did before. They're not moving the ball as well as they were before. And they are, and you can't tell me, everybody came out and said what? Oh, it's because they're got the 1 seed locked up, so they're not going to play that well. They're just going to coast into it. You can't coast into it. You have to get warm. You have to get going. LeBron saying, I'm not even in playoff mode yet in the middle of that 8-game regular season comeback. That's not a good sign. That's worrisome that you're saying that.
He's done this before. When they played the Raptors and when he was on the Cavs, they said it. When he played against the Hawks, they said it. Against the Celtics, he does it every time.
The stat here, and I know you brought this one up and you kind of poo-poo this one, but for the Lakers, this is huge because they are an outside shooting team. 9 for 54, the Lakers shooting from outside the restricted area in Game 1. 9 for 54. From outside the restricted area.
I ripped them. I said they are not a three-point shooting team. They are a team that should be getting into the paint. That's where they dominate. They're all big guys.
But this is the restricted area. This is inside the three-point line.
Yeah,
that's how bad. If they didn't score unless it was a layup or a dunk yesterday, except for 9 times or free throws.
That's where other people have to step in because, who was it? Contavious Caldwell-Pope was 0 for 9.
Yeah.
That's not good. They got to have someone, the regular guys have to
I have another one,
basketball.
but let's get to the text line real quick here. Big George says LeBron is so overrated. The Lakers are not winning anything this year. It does my heart good to see them lose as a Suns fan.
I hate the Lakers, but I love LeBron. One game is such an overreaction.
The problem is he has a history of it.
No, wait, what do you mean?
He has a history of losing, buddy.
What do you mean he has a history of losing?
Are you on who's the GOAT in basketball?
Okay, I hate this
no,
debate.
Just answer. Just say a name. Because you're going to pick LeBron.
No, I just watched Last Dance. It's Michael Jordan.
Okay, because the way you hesitated.
But LeBron has played such tougher competition than Michael Jordan.
Absolute garbage. You're too young to garbage.
Who's the greatest team Michael Jordan ever beat?
You just watched The Last Dance. Has LeBron ever been knocked down like Michael Jordan was repeatedly against the Pistons and the Celtics?
That's a whole
and
different,
all of that stuff.
That's different eras of basketball.
Don't tell me that Michael Jordan played lesser competition when he was getting his butt kicked every day and still dominated.
LeBron came back from 3-1 against
the
Warriors, who won the most regular season games.
LeBron gets a whiff of air from a hand going by his face.
That's
because
he's a product of his era. That's not him. Every single basketball player does that.
All right, we've had enough of you. Just kidding.
Just
kidding. King of Kittens says, good show, Steve. It's too hot outside. I agree, King of Kittens. It hit me today. Bummed about the Coyotes, but excited about the D-backs? Absolutely. I think we're all in that boat today. Do you think that they'll play high school football in Arizona? Yeah, I mean, they keep saying they are, and they're moving that way. And now that but the thing is like my kids go to Queen Creek School, so they started their in-person learning this week, and it's going well. You know, they're masked up, they're washing their hands and doing all that stuff. But how's that going to work when, like Mesa is not, or Scottsdale aren't going to school with the football players and all that stuff? And now he says now there's a 5-game season scheduled for October. Is that for high school football? Did they come out with that? I didn't see that.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I didn't see that this afternoon, so I'll look into that, King of Kittens. Appreciate it. Random Texter says, during LeBron's entire career, he's had a point guard that could play. There's no legitimate point guard on the Lakers. LeBron's game has gone downhill. I wouldn't say it's gone downhill. It's changed because he's older.
True.
But here's the other side. The Lakers need to dispatch Portland quickly because if this goes 6 games, 7 games, and then they keep playing, by the time he gets to the Western Conference Finals, he's going to have no legs.
Well, here's the thing. The Clippers right now are getting smacked by Dallas, so nobody's playing well in the West. Everybody is having up and down games.
Well, absolutely, and that's the thing. But it's more important for the Lakers to get through quickly than anybody else. But here's my other thing that I got for you on the Lakers. Fourth quarter droughts, right? James, one make from outside the paint. A three-pointer off a dribble handoff from Dwight Howard gave the Lakers a 6-point lead with more than 7 minutes to go. LA from there just went once in its next 10 possessions. So you say LeBron has to get the other players involved and they have to score. How about LeBron scoring crunch time? This is my problem with LeBron. He refuses to take over a game, and it pisses me off.
No, he makes the right basketball move, and then if he shoots, people say he's a ball hog. If he passes, they say there's nothing he can do that would please everyone.
A leader will take the ball and put it in the hands. One of its next 10 possessions, Portland went on a 14-2 run to take a 6-point lead after the Lakers had a 6-point lead.
This is one game. Look at his
a
career.
Guy,
he's been clutch his entire
leader,
time.
Michael Jordan ain't letting that happen. Michael Jordan would take that ball into that hoop and dunk it and score some points.
So when he beat the Suns, did he make that shot that put the Suns away? Oh, that was Bill Paxton.
Oh, see, but now you're doing apples to oranges.
Did he do the one against the Jazz? Oh, wait, that was Steve Kerr. He also made. It's called making good basketball plays.
But not again. You're confusing this. Not when your team isn't scoring. You have a 6-point lead with 7 minutes to go.
Just one bad game.
Okay.
It's just one bad game.
By the way, it's happened a lot for LeBron. This is my point.
No,
it's not just one game.
He's done a lot more clutch than non-clutch.
Okay. You're wrong. No, it happens all the time. So, Big George says, what do you think about the Tom Brenneman homophobic slur he dropped on the air today? Do you think his career is done? I don't know if it's done, but he said that way too easily, and there's a suspension coming. And we'll see if it dies down or not, and he keeps going on it. And the King of Kittens, I'll Google that. I'm going to look up that high school thing. Fortunately, ran out of time here tonight. Everybody, thanks for listening. I do appreciate it. Kaylor, thanks for arguing some basketball with me on there. Go Diamondbacks. Of course, Kelly has the bases loaded here for the A's. And he just hit a guy to load the bases. SMAC 500. Of course, we got the Saturday show at the Main Event Pod. GestaltProduction.com to find everything. Of course, Google Play, Apple Play. See y'all next week, if not Saturday morning. Thanks, guys.